A French Girl in New York was the book that launched it all for you. How biographically based was that book on your own life living in New York and in France?
Yeah, when I started the French Girl in New York, and that I decided that it would take place partly in France and partly in the US. That was because those were two countries that were super important to me. I grew up between those two, and I speak both languages, and I kind of had that experience. Also, arriving there as a French girl. I was little, but it was still like I had to learn the language, which when you're a kid, you do rather fast, but it was still a bit of an adjustment. And even when I came back to France, and now I was like completely Americanized, and it was like a foreign country, though it was my country, and I saw it with new eyes also. So I was like a foreigner, seeing things with new eyes. And so I wanted that for my character to travel from one place to another. And especially that Maud, she lives a miserable life in France in the beginning, and then her life changes when she meets this American producer, and that she goes to New York to discover that city, and to create her first album, to compose it. And yeah, I had traveled to New York in the past a little bit. I didn't know it as well as I know Paris, but I had family over there. So I was able to travel and also to ask a lot of advice from my sisters who both live over there. And it was really great, to get that energy. I love going to the places that I write, and being able to see just how people, interact, even just the way they speak, or how they walk. Do they walk fast, or do they, like, if you, like, the hometown that I grew up in Lille, for example, in the north of France, which is a small town, people have a leisurely pace. And you're in New York, things go fast, and Paris is a bit similar, though a bit less also. And I did think it was important, and I think I did that also for Paris. I wanted also to get that energy, that scenery, those habits that people have. Also, I try to do that as much as possible. And then of course you also watch series and movies, and try to research also on internet and in books also, if you can't be every time in the place that you're describing. So
After the digital versions garnered enough sales to justify a physical pressing, how did it feel to hold that book in your hands for the first time?
it was funny because that year, I was sitting for the bar exam that I failed. Actually, I failed miserably that whole year. But there was one thing that I knew that I really wanted to do, was finish the novel, and just to have one win. And it was in 2012, and I managed to, finish, work with the editor that I still work with for the French Girl series, Maya Rock, and I self-published it. And I, at first, well, nothing happened. But I was still super happy. I thought it was such an accomplishment, and I was really proud, and I was super happy. And I continued, and I marketed, and then, like, it became two, three, four, and I also passed the bar, so I succeeded at that. But, like, I knew that at that time, when I had failed everything, publishing that book was like the most important thing and the happiest thing that happened that year. And first, to finish the first draft, it's the hardest, um, you know. And even if it looks really bad, just to continue and rework it, work on it again. And then yeah, and I it was really such a great adventure afterwards.
With the second book in the series, A French Star in New York, did you already have that sequel planned ahead of time?
Well, when I finished the first book, I wasn't exactly sure that I would continue or not, but I knew that I might want to continue. And so I had prepared already. I knew how I was going to end the first book, but I knew that there were a few seats in there if I wanted to continue. And so when I decided to do the second, actually, then I knew that I would continue for several more books. Um, the things that I did from the get-go, I think, is focused on three aspects in Maud's life. Was I like her professional life and ambitions. So she wants to be a singer. her family and friends. So she's an orphan and she doesn't know who her parents are and how they died, and her foster family never says who they are. And so there's a quest for an identity in the first book that she discovers. I'm not going to say what happens, but she discovers more about that. And in the first book also, she has this family life with the people who brought her to New York and who help her with her music and everything. So in the second book, she has a family life and friends, and that also, well, that raises issues, you know, even people love you and everything, there are issues there. And then the third thing is also romance, and so a love interest. So those three aspects I think are important for every character. Once you have those three storylines, you'll find that there are many things that you can say, especially regarding professional and personal ambitions. You, even when a character seems to have it all, like, you know, there's still new ambitions. And I think in music, honestly, like with Maud, so her first album is out, but then like what happens next? There are awards, there are you know, criticisms, critics, you know, rivalries and things like that. And then her family life and the identity that she's building also, that raises a number of questions. So I just think there's so much more. And then there's the romance. I think romance at some point, if you focus only on the romance in a book, at some point there's going to be nothing more to say. So if you have those three aspects, you'll always find things to say and to go further with the character.